Welcome to Real-ationship Goals, a podcast all about the realities of healthy relationships. Real-ationship Goals is a project of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual violence or harassment and is seeking support, services, or needs more information, links to resources and our hotline number can be found in the description. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of their organizations or affiliates. Hey everybody, welcome back to Real-ationship Goals. I'm Kyla.
I'm Mariana.
I'm Maria.
Awesome. And today, after just a little bit of discussion, we have decided that we are going to not engage in a story time for today's episode, just because we wanted to maintain a bit of a more reverent and a little bit of a more serious tone, I think, for this episode, and engaging in a story just didn't really seem to match that tone. So as you've probably noticed from the topic for today's episode, we're going to be talking about grooming. This can definitely be an activating topic for folks. So if you need to skip this one and jump back in to a different episode, or maybe go back and re-listen to an episode, we totally understand. Do whatever you need to keep yourself safe and to keep yourself healthy. But we are going to be covering grooming today. So we're going to actually just go ahead and jump right into today's content.
Yeah. So as you can tell, the theme of this season is that we will be focusing on relationships of the aspect on the digital world. So grooming is defined by the rape, abuse, and incest network as manipulative behaviors that the abusers use to gain access to a potential victim. So I believe, like, as a society today, with how we are expanding in the digital world, with different social media platforms and such things of that, grooming has become very easy to disguise. Like, especially like if they're using, like, it doesn't have to be hostile or a really, really intense conversation or behaviors. It could be disguised as being more friendly. And I feel like in that space, it's kind of hard to really like point out or pick out when a grooming process has begun. And so with that being said, what do we think about grooming when it comes to our relationships with our family, friends, partners, and how does it like impact them?
Just to get it out of the way, I feel like we have to issue a blanket statement of grooming is bad.
Yes.
We very don't support grooming, just to take a hard stance on the issue. We will not be going back and forth on that one.
No.
We were coming from a very anti-grooming standpoint. I also think it's just kind of good to note, I think that most of our focus for this episode is probably going to be a bit more like adult influencer focused on tips and tricks for y'all, just for keeping the students in your life safe and having good conversations with them about it. But at the same time, I think we're going to have some good moments for you students out there listening in of just good ways to be aware and just stay safe, stay smart, like we usually say. But yeah, jumping in.
Grooming for me is like one of those things, having, my kiddo be 9 and my nieces being 8 and 9 as well, that I am just like super wary about, just because you don't know the people that they're interacting with fully unless you're like helicoptering them all the time while they're on their, gadgets.
Their doodads.
Their doodads, their whatchamacallits. And I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's super important to like not only teach them the proper way and like don't give out your information and like don't like take everything at face value, because they might say they're a 10-year-old little girl and you have 72-year-old Jim Bob on the other side.
Jim Bob.
Wanting to like get close to this little kid. And so it's, like I said, important to teach them like the healthy and safe practices for being online Like if they have Facebooks or TikToks or whatever, not just randomly friending people, and like
Mm.
it's okay to talk to people, but it's not okay to like, there's like a certain line, I
Yeah.
feel like a thin line where you cross from like being friendly to like someone being overly friendly with you as a minor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then especially if they're trying to like coerce you with like, I'll give you money if you like do this, or like don't tell your parents because
Yeah.
it's our little secret.
Or like skins or special items or things like that in video games, because grooming over like
Mhm.
video game platforms and messaging systems and things like that is, I think, one of the larger growing areas that we've been seeing.
Mhm.
It's definitely something I unfortunately need to do more research on, but I feel like we've been hearing about it a lot more, and it's just such an easy area for someone to begin building that misplaced trust with
Mhm.
a student, because it's like, oh, like it's always like the first few, and it's like, oh, I'm just going to give you this because I like you, or because you're fun, or I like playing with you, I like talking to you. And then a little bit later it's like, oh, I gave you this, so I'm like, I'm giving you these things, so you owe me, or you owe me this, you owe me that, and then it kind of like snowballs and escalates from there. So that's just a big one, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a hard place to be. And especially like with parents and having to monitor like things that they engage with digitally, different accounts that they engage with, making sure that you're paying attention to those details. So like, what are some unhealthy tactics that can be deemed to be grooming? Like tips that we could give
Mm.
to point out like this is what you could look out for that could be deemed grooming.
I mean, I'd say less so for adult influencers, but just for any students that are listening in, like it can be okay to be complimented on you acting mature for your age. Like that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing.
Mhm.
But I'm getting sound bites like in my ear of like, oh, you're so much more mature than like kids your age. Like you're special, you're different. Like I really like talking to you. Nobody gets me the way that you do. Or like your parents are so unfair. Like they should be treating you more like an adult. Like you're not just some little kid. So there's a lot of different tactics in there of where it's like obviously using flattery and trying to gain favor and win favor with the student, and at the same time it's beginning to insert those isolation tactics as well, of isolating them from their support systems, from their friends, from their family. Nobody understands like how I feel about you and things. Like it just makes my skin crawl. Which also has to be said, students, this is never your fault. Never. It doesn't matter if you initiated the conversation. If they are an adult, they should shut it down. It doesn't matter how long you were talking to them. It doesn't matter if you quote unquote knew better. It does not matter. It is not your fault. Period.
Yeah, and if you like are hearing this and you're like, man, this sounds like the kind of situation my friend so and so is in, like speak out to an adult that you trust about the situation, because things like this can get very, very serious very quickly. And it's always best to nip it in the bud, as quickly as possible.
For sure.
Yeah, I think social media and online in general has made it so easy for these kinds of things to be done. Like Snapchat has that delete after you see it feature. Instagram has that like secret mode now, or the vanish mode, or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, you like
Yeah, it
swipe
does.
up or something like that.
And it'll
It's like,
vanish.
yeah.
Oh, I did not
They
know
can
about that.
like in text message threads, they can unsend messages that they sent before.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So like,
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of apps that like automatically delete and encrypt
Hide
all of your
things.
And kids these days are smart. Like I have apps on my phone that are called one thing, but it opens you up to a different thing. Just for Netflix, I just have a random picture, by the way. Yeah, I don't have like weird stuff on my.
Wait.
Yeah, pause.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's all appropriate on their
Above board.
phone. But
That's super fair.
like as technology advances, so does the tactics that are used
Mhm.
and the amount of ways that a child can be reached.
For
Mhm.
sure. For sure. Oh, that's hard stuff.
Yikes.
And in the grooming process, people that are doing the grooming really, really thrive on offering incentives like gifts, or
Mhm.
if you are like closer to the legal age to drink alcohol or anything like that.
Sometimes not even closer to
Not
legal
even
age.
like if they know there's like, oh, this person
Mhm.
drinks or whatever, and offering that, or drugs or transportation, like, hey, I'll pay for this Uber for you to go here,
Yeah.
but you have to do this for me.
Yeah.
So just using those incentives to really draw that child in is
Mhm.
really scary and frustrating sometimes. Just like as adult influencers that are positive in that child's life,
Mhm.
that's really scary and frustrating to be in that, I think. So
I'd say just definitely not every adult that is kind to
Yeah.
your child or shows an interest in them is a groomer. That's
Yeah.
just simply not the case.
Mm.
So we definitely don't want to terrify
Yeah.
everyone listening and be like,
For sure.
everyone is out to get my child. No,
No.
they're not. I promise they're not. There are so many good and well-intentioned people out in the world,
Mhm.
and yay for that. I'm so glad. There are just a few bad eggs out there that are looking to harm and looking to hurt. So we definitely don't want to scare you. That is not the intention. But just something that you can do, just because, as we've talked about in previous episodes, we don't believe that the right answer is constantly combing through all of the messages and all of the things that your student in your life is doing with like a fine-tooth comb, just because we believe they're entitled to some degree of privacy and autonomy, for sure.
Mm.
But like we've said before, creating that environment where they feel comfortable, where it's like, hey, there's this person who's sending me these messages, or they're offering to send me these things. I'm getting weird vibes. I've never had this before. It's kind of weird. You want to create an environment where they're comfortable coming to you with that information, and you don't immediately, unintentionally even, shut them down by getting angry or frustrated with them. Well, why are you talking to strangers on the internet? It's not their fault. It's not their fault. And that's so scary to have that, and to feel that vulnerability, and to know that they can potentially get hurt, or to know they might be in that situation. But you don't want to misdirect those upset feelings at your student, even if, quote unquote, they should know better. That's not the problem here. The problem is that adult that is trying to insert themselves in an unhealthy way into this student's life. So just remembering that, but different things that you can maybe be on the lookout for, especially if you are like trying to create this good relationship with them, is if their behavior changes, if they seem more withdrawn, if they become more like evasive, I think with like the technology that they're using, if they're beginning to like hide it more or act more secretive, I think that whenever they're not normally, I think that could just be a good moment to sit down and maybe have a conversation of like, hey, are you doing okay? What's going on?
Most definitely.
And I think like I think like communication for me, and any relationship type of relationship you have is like a huge thing. And with our kiddo, we make it a point to know, like, if something happens online that she is not comfortable with, she can come to us. Like, she was playing Roblox one day, and a message came in from someone, and she was like, I don't know about this. And we were like, okay, like, thank you for letting us know. Like, you were really brave and like telling us, like, validating that. And just like, it's scary for a child to like come up. Like, they have these questions about like, oh yeah, what does this word mean? Or like, why are they doing this? And it's scary just for a parent. Like, it's also for the child, and just making sure that they know, like, they are protected, and validating their feelings. Like, I don't think I can say that enough.
Sure.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
feel it also applies for like students watching out for other students.
Mhm.
Mm,
Like if your friends are talking about, oh, like this college guy or this like the manager at the store that I work at or manager at the McDonald's I work at or anything like that, is like, I almost said putting the moves on, and then I realized that made me sound like I'm about 100. So I'm
Trying to riz you up.
yeah, trying to rizz you up. But like if your friends are maybe even like bragging about things like that,
mhm.
bringing in a trusted adult, you can definitely broach, if you're comfortable with it, you can definitely broach a conversation with them and say like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's healthy. But I can definitely understand if you wouldn't feel comfortable having that conversation, because that's really hard
Mm.
and that's really heavy. So I definitely encourage you to bring in a safe and trusted adult, I think, into that space.
You can even do it anonymously too. If you don't want to be like known as like a snitch or whatever, you could, leave an anonymous message for an adult that you trust, or be like, hey, like I want you to keep my identity like secret. Because it could be that multiple kids know, and you're the only one who's like, okay, like I kind of see where this is going and can kind of see that like this isn't recognized, that this isn't something that should be happening,
Mhm.
because the age difference and like this just feels wrong to me, and be like, hey, I don't want to be the person that's known, like don't mention my name, whatever it might be. There's other platforms I'm sure you can use, like even leaving an anonymous tip at your like local department if you need to, if like you don't have a trusted adult.
Do you mean like a police department?
Yes.
Okay. I was trying to, I don't think local department store, go to your Macy's. No.
Are they even still
But-
around?
Macy's? Yeah.
Oh my.
I don't know about in Waco. I don't know.
I think so.
Oh,
I don't know. Well, we're going to take a field trip to the mall after this, but jumping back into topic. Yeah, it's hard stuff. And I know that it can be popular, I think, to like hype that up to your friends, like especially I think for like young guys and like fellas out there. Like you have an older lady, your guys are saying like, oh, big man,
Mhm.
look at you, like, and telling you it makes you more of a man if you're receiving attention from like an older woman or an adult when you're a teenager.
Mhm.
And that is just not the case. That is still a predator. It doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't make you any cooler, because that sounds negatively towards you. And whatever, once again, it's not your fault, period. But that is not what makes you cool
Mhm.
at all. That is just a person who is looking to harm you. So I just definitely wanted to mention that, because I feel like it definitely gets overlooked, that it's just as common for boys
Mhm.
to
Yes.
experience grooming as well, by both like men and women.
Yeah.
For sure. It's just something that I think gets ignored or even celebrated sometimes.
It's like, I feel like sometimes it's deemed as like a rite of passage to
Yeah.
like go, like you got with an older girl, like good for you, like good job, like you're the man. But
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like a whole different conversation though when it comes to girls and
Yeah.
women. It's like, oh no, this is really, really bad. But
Yeah.
like it's just as bad as
But,
for young boys.
but as soon as it's a guy, it's like, oh, big
Yeah.
man, look at you
that's
go.
what's up.
It's,
You're a big dude.
Adam,
Yeah.
Adam boy.
yeah, and that's just bad.
Not the case.
Don't do that.
No, no.
Not good.
Mm-mm.
We do not love that. But
Mm-mm.
any other thoughts you'll have on this, or you feeling pretty good?
Besides that it's bad.
Yeah.
No.
Once again, we have to state grooming is bad. We do not approve of it. But yeah, definitely just adult influencers. Jumping back to you guys, be having conversations about healthy boundaries with your students, and what respect looks like, the respect that they are entitled to, and how they should be treated. We need to be creating environments where we're encouraging students to have standards for how they're treated by other folks, especially online,
Mhm.
which just continues to be kind of uncharted territories, I think. So what are healthy boundaries, like whenever you're online, things like that?
Yeah.
Nobody that ever cares about you is gonna pressure you to do things that make you uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And it will always be a red flag. So
Mhm.
moving on from that, we can probably go ahead and transition into our relationship goal for today, which I believe Maria has.
Hit me. So yeah, just kind of keep it in line with that. Just for the younger audience listening to us, be careful with who you speak to online, but just remember as well that it's okay to have friends, as long as you maintain your personal boundaries and that respect for yourself and these dialogues that you're having with them. And for parents and influencers, like I said earlier, just keep the communication open. Make sure you build that trust and be that safe space for a child, whether it be your own or someone else that you're another child that you're close with. Be that safe space for them to come talk to you if they see something suspicious or if they have something happening to them or a peer.
Thank you for that. And then I have a recommendation today to close us out. I would like to recommend trying out a new hobby, no matter what it is, and don't give up if you're not immediately good or successful at it. This is just as much a recommendation to myself as it is to you all, because I have been known in the past to get frustrated whenever I am not immediately perfect at a new thing that I'm trying. So we will try things and stick with them together.
Mhm.
All right, so that's all from us. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We will see you next week, but if you're wanting a little bit more P&E content in the meantime, be sure that you're following us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention. Or if you want to follow the Advocacy Center and check out what we're doing in Waco, you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at advocacy_Waco. And then be sure that you like this video and subscribe so that you can stay caught up on all of the Real-ationship episodes to follow in the weeks to come. But thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Real-ationship Goals. This episode was produced by the Prevention and Education Department of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. You can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention. See you next time.